Let's see. Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. Sounds quite strange. Are we okay now? Okay, we're ready to go. I'm very happy to speak to all of you today, and I'm really pleased to see such a wonderful group of ladies. Just give me an idea, are you in your matric year, or which years of school are you at? Grade 11. All of you grade 11. Grade 10 and grade 11. And you're all doing science at school? Yes. Okay, great. I'm asking that because if I say things that you don't understand, please interrupt me and put your hands up. I really don't mind, okay? There's absolutely nothing wrong with you chatting to me while I'm talking. So, I thought today we'll start off talking a little bit about the year of the element, and the early birds caught the worm. We spoke about the periodic table, but I won't let you look out. We'll just summarize what we were talking about. But first, let's just have a look. This is my research group at the University of the Western Cape. I've got about 32 students in my group. They come from all over. They are master students and doctorate students. Now, you're still at school, and you still have to go through your undergraduate studies to get to doing your master's and your doctorate research. It seems like a long road from where you start now. But let me tell you my own road to get into the position where I am now. At school, I was a very bad scientist. I got an E for science in matric. I got a very bad mark for science in matric. And I did a bit of study, but I actually had to go and start working because we were financially not able to afford my studies. So I worked for many years. And eventually I started working at universities. I started working at the University of Cape Town in the chemical engineering department as a storekeeper when my children were old enough for me to leave them at home. So, humble beginnings. I was doing the stock taking for the research group that I was working at, and I was doing the ordering for them. And by doing a little bit more every day than I absolutely needed to do, I slowly worked myself from being the storekeeper to being a research assistant and helping the students with research. And while I was helping them with research, I learned about modern instrumental techniques. In other words, the type of instruments that you find here at iThemba labs, like your X-ray diffraction and various other instruments. And I learned how to help the students to do that. And over the years, I gained a lot of experience, and I started making new materials called zeolites, which are based on silica, and we'll speak about the elements just now. But those are very good catalysts. And so eventually I became the scientific officer for the catalysis research group. I was at UCT for around about 19 years. So 19 years. So I started off as a storekeeper, and when I finished off there, I was a scientific officer. And then I got employed at UWC as a scientific officer, and also doing the same things, managing the research and helping the students with the instrumental techniques. And then when I was in my late 40s, I started my master's. And I got my doctorate in 2008. That's how many years ago? 11 years ago. So I'm what is called a late starter. And what I want to say to you girls is life happens. Life is not a straightforward process. And you don't always achieve what you want to achieve straight away. But never give up. Because I have had so much fun doing research since I got my PhD, that it was worth all the long route of my journey through life. And I hope that encourages you. One doesn't just arrive as a scientist. It's a process. It takes dedication and hard work, but it's very, very interesting in the process. And at the moment, in our research, as you saw on that page that you were given, we're focusing a lot on water remediation and using making a plan with waste. Now, I'm not going to really tell you about the waste today because I wanted to focus on the element carbon. So, those are our laboratories up there in the new Chemical Sciences building at UWC. And we've got very good facilities there. And I suggest that you really do look at after your matric, to go to a university and get your degree in the sciences. Remember, we are at a stage in life where there are lots of people that study psychology and lots of people that study business science because they think they're going to get rich. I'm not too sure why people study psychology. Maybe it's to understand themselves better. A lot of people do business science because they think that they're going to become rich by being a business person, which is fine. I've got nothing against people doing business. But to do business, you have to have an idea. Else it's going to be difficult. Else you're just going to be selling sweets or clothes or something like that. So what I want to say that as a scientist, you can come up with a brilliant idea that nobody else has come up with, and you could start your own business with that idea. And if you patent your idea, and we'll discuss that a bit as we go along, you can actually build your whole company on your idea, and nobody can copy. So think about a science career, because there you have the opportunity to be unique in a very specific area. Now, as scientists, remember, there are different places in science for each one of you. Think about doctors. You have a pediatrician who deals with babies. You've got an ophthalmologist who deals with eyes. You've got an audiologist who deals with ears. You've got a podiatrist who deals with feet. You've got, you know what I mean. There's different specialities, and that's just the same with science. There are different specialities, and I can't possibly introduce you to all the different specialities in science, but there's a place for all of you, whether it's in physics, or chemistry, or biology, or any of the other areas of science. There are really interesting things to be done in science, and you will be unique. You will be sought after, and people will be interested in your research. So let's go on a little bit today to talk about the periodic table. Now, just now when the first group was waiting for you, we looked at that periodic table that you've got. And I pointed out to the students that there are a lot of elements missing from that periodic table. This is an old periodic table. If you look at the new periodic table there, you see there's a little human standing next to those elements. Those are all synthetic chemicals, synthetic elements that have been made by people. The elements that don't have that little human next to them are elements that you can go and find out in nature, okay? And you all have dealt with the periodic table by now. You know that there are gases, and there are metals, and there are constituent metals, and then there are organic compounds. Eh? Which of these here, of these elements relate to organic compounds? Do you know the difference between inorganic and organic? Organic is the stuff that living things are made of. So, which element is that? Which element primarily is that? Any suggestions? C, carbon. Carbon. Carbon is the basic building block of life. It's the only element on there that is majorly involved in living things. We'll talk about that a bit later. I just want you to look at what the first periodic table looked like. So you can understand, use carbon. Can you see carbon? It looks a bit different from the periodic table that you've got there. Now the chap that, there were one or two people that started thinking about the elements in the 18th century and before the 18th century. They were trying to understand what elements were. How do elements differ from one another? Atomic mass, which is caused by? It's differences in the amount of protons and neutrons and electrons. Eh? So the subatomic particles are the same, but because we put them together differently, we get different elements, isn't it? So if we go back to that periodic table, what is happening with those synthetic elements is that we are rearranging the subatomic particles. Now, as Mr. Yalla told us, that's got to do with smashing that silica until it's that grain of sand, until we get to the smallest particle. But what they do with accelerators, like what is here at iThemba, is that they smash those particles together, and then they make new elements. And those are man-made elements. The trouble with those elements is that they're not stable. They don't last for very long. They last for a couple of milliseconds or nanoseconds. Whereas the elements that we find in the earth are in the earth because they're so stable. Like silica, the beach sand comes from rocks that have been on the earth for many, many, many eons. So a lot of elements are very stable, whereas a lot of new elements are very unstable. And a lot of elements have also got isotopes and become radioactive. We spoke about that briefly earlier on. So have you all spoken about radioactivity? So here at iThemba Labs, they use that ability of some elements to decay from the parent to the daughter to make nuclear medicines. So here at iThemba Labs, they actually have a facility where they use nuclear medicine to treat people for cancer and things like that. They also have beams here where they can do proton therapy. It's proton therapy here, eh? Yeah.
They actually
Stopped it. But there used to be a facility here where you could actually use a proton beam that has been accelerated from an element to treat cancers specifically. Now, I don't want to go into nuclear sciences too much today, because that's not really my area of expertise, but as I told the other learners, there's a fantastic opportunity for those of you who are interested in physics and nuclear physics specifically. And when we're talking about nuclear physics, we're not talking about atom bombs, please. We are talking about the nucleus of an element. Okay? And here at iThemba Labs and in places like Russia and Tuscany, where that element dupnium was made, they actually try to find new subatomic particles by designing ways to smash those elements in and it's what is called a new frontier. And the Russians and the Americans and the Europeans and the Chinese are in a race to make new elements. And these elements that you see there with the little men next to them are actually new elements that have been made in some of these accelerator-based laboratories. And here we have a program between South Africa and Russia where when you get to your master's level or your doctorate level, you can actually join a group that goes to one of those big accelerators and spend 3 weeks there learning about accelerator techniques and learning about how to actually do research in that area. And there's a lot of very interesting research going on there. I'm not going to deal with it in great detail today, but we work with them on making new membranes for water purification. By using those accelerator techniques, we take plastic films and we bombard those plastic films with heavy ions, some of these subatomic particles. And it makes a little trap inside the polymer, inside the plastic. And then we put that plastic inside an alkali, and we open up that trap till it's a pore. And we can carefully tailor that pore to a very specific size so that you can sieve out specific components out of a variety of other components. So we are using those membranes, for instance, to take dyes out of water, to give you an idea. I'm not going to talk about it in detail, but that's one of the things that we've been doing at Russia. The other thing that we've been doing at the accelerator in Russia is we've been analyzing for inorganic elements. So there they have a system called the neutron activation analysis system, which is also based on subatomic particles. So it has a beam of neutrons that get bombarded onto a specimen, a sample, and then it can tell you what metals and other elements are inside that particular sample that you've got. So we use that system to look to see whether we have got radioactive elements present, for instance. Which are the common radioactive elements? Uranium, thorium, radon. Yeah. So radon is a gas, so it's difficult to detect. But the uranium and thorium we can measure with this technique. And we can also measure a lot of the lanthanides and actinides easily, which is not so easily done by other techniques. So then we can tell what our samples are composed of. Now that becomes interesting when you're looking at biological specimens to see if they've been contaminated with heavy metals or toxic elements. And we're doing a survey at the moment with the University of Stellenbosch. We'll be looking at what kind of toxic metals are inside mussels, the shellfish that you eat. And we're doing the study with them at Tuscany to see where are areas along our coastline where the mussels are contaminated with metals, inorganics. So that's a very interesting study that we're doing with the accelerator-based techniques in Russia. Okay, I spoke to you about this very first periodic table, and what I want you to understand is that this is developing science. Please remember that science, the facts that you learn at school, what you're learning from your textbooks, was stuff that was discovered 20 or 40 or 60 years ago. But we're all busy doing research all the time. So new information is busy developing all the time. And then we have to revise these old periodic tables. So you see, Mendeleev started off with this periodic table, and it slowly developed to the periodic table that you've got in front of you because we gained new knowledge. And since then it has actually progressed, and there are new elements on that periodic table. So there's a really nice, exciting new frontier in nuclear physics, particle physics. So there's old Mendeleev. He looks like a crusty old man, doesn't he? But he noticed that there were recurring patterns in the way that the elements behaved. And he arranged their known elements by atomic weight in that grid pattern. And then he could actually predict the qualities of unknown elements. So he could theoretically predict that there were elements that had not been discovered yet. And that actually stimulated the hunt for new elements. And that's why the periodic table pulled up. Now, it's said that he had a dream where he saw these elements align. But I still think that that was an enormous intellectual discovery, isn't it? Remember, this was in the 18th century, where there weren't all the modern techniques that we use today. And he used his brain to think this up by being curious and saying, now why is that? What is making that happen? There's a lot of stuff around us that we don't notice, isn't it? And we don't stop to say, now why is that happening? What is causing it? Somebody must have stood and looked at gold, and they looked at other metals, and wondered why there was a difference between them for the elements to start being discovered, isn't it? Now, if you look into history, we started off very early on in history with the discovery of gold and the technology around developing ways to extract gold. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Bible, aren't you? Yes. Now have a look at the stories about David and Solomon. They were alive round about 1,000 years before Christ. I might have the dates a bit wrong. But it says that in those days, gold was so common that it was used for everything. So gold smelting, getting hold of gold, was probably the first hunt for purifying and getting elements to be profitable. And if you have a look, do you know the statue that Daniel saw? The head of gold, what was it, the shoulders of silver or something, and then there was bronze, and then there was iron and feet of clay, isn't it? And that picture that Daniel saw is the picture of the discovery of the first elements and the extraction of the first elements, of the first metals. So that is how our technology developed over a very long time. And as we discovered elements, we found our ways to make use of them. So just like David and Solomon used the gold to make cups and to make decorations for the temples, etc. And then later on the Romans started using iron to make spears and things like that. Every time we find a new element, we find ways of using it. Okay? Now, if you have a look here on the next slide, the non-metals sit in that one top corner. Can you see where they sit on your periodic table? And these are your gases. And these are elements that behave in a way that's not metallic. And you see carbon sits there at the top of that. Now let's have a little look at carbon. Who of you know what this is? The pencil gives you a clue. Your pencil has got graphite in it. Graphite is a form of carbon. Did you know that? It's an inorganic form of carbon. So every time you use your pencil to write, do you guys still use pencils? Yes. Every time you use your pencil to write, you're actually laying down little sheets of graphite on your paper. That's inorganic carbon. So that's a form of carbon you're very familiar with. But the form of carbon that you're not so familiar with is the carbon that's in your body. Now, if you look at that picture there, you're made up of oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen, which are gases. But in your body, it's actually in the form of water, isn't it? So if we add the hydrogen and the oxygen together, we're a sack of water, aren't we? And what are these things that keep us stiff made of? What are your bones made of? Calcium. And proteins, isn't it? The calcium and the proteins together make the bones. But most of you is actually carbon. Look at that, apart from the water. 80% of you is carbon. And most plants are made of carbon. And that is the organic form of carbon. So there is the inorganic form of carbon and the organic form of carbon. And we'll look at both of those. So today I'm going to concentrate on the element of carbon and take you on a bit of a discovery tour of just the element of carbon and what we've been doing with the element of carbon. Just like I said to you, David found uses for gold. We're finding uses for carbon these days. This is where a lot of knowledge is being focused on at the moment. So you're also all familiar with coal? Yes. And coal is one of the inorganic forms of carbon. And we use coal for a great deal of energy production, isn't it? But mining coal and burning coal has got enormous environmental impacts. So if you have a look at what happens when you mine coal, this thing there that's busy digging that big crane there is more or less 4 stories high. It's huge. And this is an open cast mining pit where they're digging the coal out of the ground in Mpumalanga. And I hope you notice there that there's fires burning because the coal sets alight spontaneously. That's called spontaneous combustion. And you see the huge amount of dust being created by that. The other thing that happens when we mine coal is that actually when it rains, the rain goes into that coal mine. And the rocks that are associated with coal are actually containing an element called pyrite, which is iron and sulfur. Have a look for iron and sulfur. It combines together to form a compound called pyrite. And when we put water on that pyrite, it actually turns into acid. It turns into sulfuric acid. And that sulfuric acid eats the rocks. And it releases all the elements in the rocks into the water. And that is why we have a huge problem with water up in the coal fields and in the gold fields. Because of that pyrite that turns into sulfuric acid, it's a natural reaction. And once you start digging up these minerals, you stimulate that natural reaction because you're putting oxygen and water together with it. And it creates a very horrible water that's dark orange, and I'll show you something about that in a minute. The other thing is, of course, that burning the coal creates all these gaseous emissions which contaminate the air. Now, we're lucky down here because we're far away from where the mess is. But please remember, every time you take your finger and you switch on an electric switch, you're causing coal to be burnt on the high belt. And you're causing acid mine drainage to be generated there. Because our way of generating energy is very, very dirty. And somebody is paying the price. The communities that live up there pay the price of dirty air and polluted water, while we sit here and we press a button and have electricity. So please also think about the long connection between the coal and yourselves, because I want to come back to that a bit later on. So here's a picture of how that acid mine drainage is generated. You create a hole into the pyrite-bearing rock, the water gets in there, the oxygen gets in there, and it forms the acid mine drainage, which pollutes all the rivers and kills all the organisms that live in the rivers, like the fish and the little creatures that live around the rivers. Now, we developed a process to treat that acid mine drainage by using ash. We've got a patent on that. The ash is the dust that remains after you've burnt the coal. Have you all seen the white stuff that remains after you burn coal? Now, that's the inorganic elements that are captured inside the coal. Do you know how coal forms? Basically, what happened very many years ago is that plants died and fell into water. And then over the years, sand covered those plants, and they got deeper and deeper underground, and the pressure of the soil on top of them actually finally turned those plants into coal. Did you know that's where coal comes from? Now you know. Okay. Read about the formation of coal. It's very interesting. It's a very slow process, and basically those plants were taking the CO2 out of the air to build themselves, isn't it? And what we're doing now in these last 100 years is that we're taking all that carbon that was taken out of the air and sequestered in the plants. We're taking it and burning it and releasing the CO2 into the air again. And what is happening because of the CO2? Have you heard about it? Climate change. Yeah. Wakey, wakey. Burning coal and burning oil causes CO2 to be released. CO2 that was trapped. And that is why we're having climate change on a global scale. Because we're throwing that carbon back into the air after it had taken many, many eons to capture it. Now, if you don't know, before living creatures were on the earth, there was too much CO2 for life to exist. It's toxic. And it's only when enough of that CO2 was trapped that that living creatures were able to exist on the earth. So if we don't release all that CO2 into the air, what's going to happen to us? Yeah. So please think about that finger that goes to the light switch. And think about going towards renewable energy. Have you all heard about renewable energy? Solar energy and wind energy. Okay. So apart from all of that, we developed this process to treat the acid mine drainage water with the ash, that residue that remains after you've burnt the coal. And we actually recently put up a pilot plant to treat the acid mine drainage up in Johannesburg. And you can see my students there busy working on that pilot plant. Now that shows you the time it takes from an idea to testing it out. I had the idea of using ash to neutralize acid mine drainage, and because the ash is alkaline and the acid mine drainage is acid. And when you put them together, you neutralize the water and you take the dirt out. I had that idea in 1998. And we worked on it until we took out a patent in around about 2006, before I had my PhD. And then, over the last 20 years, we've been working to get this process up to the scale where we can demonstrate it, to show people that you can clean the acid mine drainage. So I want to give you an idea from that, how long it takes to get an idea to market. It's a very different process, discovering something, from getting it to market. So we'll stop there with the coal story. And now I want to talk to you about other carbon-based molecules. So we spoke about the carbon molecule. And the carbon molecule has got 4 bonds on it. You all know that? Yes. And you can see how those 4 bonds link up to form CO2, the gas that we've just been talking about. And we all know the trouble that CO2 causes. But carbon is also found in different inorganic forms, which is the most common. The one that ladies like the most. Diamonds are forever, eh? Now, how can the same element, carbon, be coal and graphite and diamond? Yeah, it's got to do with the pressure that's applied to it, but it's also got to do with the bonding. How the carbon connects up. Now, I showed you how carbon connects up with oxygen, but carbon can also connect up with itself, carbon-to-carbon bonds. And it can form a structure like this when we're talking about diamond, carbon-to-carbon bonds. And it can form a structure like that when we're talking about graphite, what's in our pencils. So you can see here, when it's in layers of sheets like that, they easily slip off, and that's why a pencil can be used to write with. So it's got to do with the bonding, the way things bond, the way the orbitals interact. And because of that, we've also made new man-made inorganic carbon. And those things are called buckyballs and carbon nanotubes. Have you heard of them? Well, here's a buckyball, and here's a carbon nanotube. And that's the way that humans have been manipulating carbon to form new materials. Now, those buckyball and carbon nanotubes are called allotropes of carbon. It's a new form of carbon, inorganic carbon. And at the moment, a lot of people are spending time doing science on trying to use buckyballs and carbon nanotubes to make new materials. And we've spent a lot of time doing research on these materials too, to make very good catalysts for fuel cells, which are an alternative to coal and to petrol. Because they make very stable supports for catalysts for those fuel cells. And if you just have a look at the way that the carbon can connect up in these new materials, it's got to do with the way that the carbon can hybridize, how the bonds can connect up. And you can see in the buckyball's case, it basically connects up into 5 and 6 membrane rings. And in the carbon nanotube, you've basically got your 6 membrane rings only. And that makes the difference. Do you see how they're connected up? So carbon is a very interesting element because it can be connected up in all kinds of different ways. And I'm sure that you've already started doing a bit of organic chemistry in your classes, have you? Have you met these compounds? So what us chemists do, we play with carbon and we make new compounds out of carbon using these type of bonds. These are the functional groups on carbon. They terminate it with other molecules like your oxygen or your hydroxide group, or just different ways that the carbon is connected up. The R stands for the carbon, hey? You all know about that. And you all know what alcohol is? That's a form of carbon. Okay. You might not be so familiar with the other functional groups, but you've met them, eh? Okay. So organic chemists spend a lot of time making new compounds out of carbon. That's also an area of research, a constantly developing new field of research is making new compounds out of carbon. But the trouble with that is this. The whole world is suffering from pollution caused by carbon compounds. Now, a lot of the research that we're doing at the moment is to try and understand where is that pollution coming from and what it is and how to take it out of water. Because these compounds are coming back to you in your drinking water and in your food. So let's just have a look how that happens. These compounds are called persistent organic pollutants. Because us chemists are very clever, when we put together those different carbon compounds, they're very tough molecules. They don't break down. They have no planned obsolescence in them. Just like diamond is extremely durable, the compounds that we make are extremely durable. Carbon bonds are tough bonds to break. They need energy, they need catalysts, they need activators to break. So, because of that, when we use pharmaceuticals or other carbon compound containing materials, they actually get into our water system. For instance, we give cows and livestock medicines, and they defecate, and then that gets washed down into the rivers. And the medicines that you gave the cow goes into the river. Every time you take a headache pill, when you defecate, it goes into the sewer, and it does not come out of the sewage. It goes into the environment. So you can see it all ends up in our receiving water. These are the type of carbon compounds that are being found in the environment, the emerging compounds. They're pharmaceuticals, endocrine disrupting compounds, personal care products. Let's stop there for a minute. I'm sure you're all aware of that big bottle of Dawn, or whatever it's called, that you smear all over yourself, hey? I don't know what your favorite brand is, but in my day it was Dawn. Then next time you go and shower, all of that stuff washes off. Okay? Have you noticed when you put it on your hands and you go wash your hands, it comes off, it's all slimy. Yeah. We also use toothpaste every morning. In that toothpaste there's a whole lot of compounds. Go and read the back of your toothpaste. and go and see what compounds are inside your toothpaste. Every time you brush your teeth and you spit out that stuff, it goes down the drain and it goes into the receiving water. And remember, in the toothpaste and in some of the face scrubs that we use, they've put microplastics to give it that abrasive quality. You know about that abrasive quality. That's microplastics. And the microplastic goes straight into the environment, through the drains. And we cannot take those things out of the water. Nanomaterials are another problem. For instance, maybe you don't use it so much, but I have to use sunscreen when I'm going to the sun because I burn very easy. And that's fully titanium dioxide. And when I wash, it goes into the environment, isn't it? And perfluorinated compounds come from your non-stick pans. You know those pans with the black coating? That's nice to fry your eggs in because they don't stick. That stuff is coated with perfluorinated compounds. A lot of your jackets have got perfluorinated compounds on them to stop them from rain penetrating. And then also, what I haven't put on here is the other type of microplastics, which are the fibers that come from our non-woven clothes. You know those non-woven jackets that we buy for keeping warm? Yeah, that's what you've got on. Yeah. All of those fibers also are man-made fibers made out of polymers, made out of a form of plastic. And all those fibers are washing out of your clothes and washing into the drains and getting into the ocean. It's estimated that soon there will be more plastic and more of these chemicals in the ocean than what there will be fish. And we are already finding many fish that have died because their stomachs are choked up with plastics. Have you seen those images on the TV? Yes. So us chemists are guilty of a lot because we made the plastics. And plastics have become the rage, the modern material of choice, isn't it? Everything we use has got plastic around it, or in it, or on top of it. And we're releasing that into the environment and it simply doesn't break down. So what I want to show you today is these compounds here that chemists have made. So there you can see some compounds like the acetaminophen, which is basically the compound that goes into Panado. So this one goes into Panado. This is what you call an antibiotic that you take when you've got a disease. And then there's an antiretroviral, ARV. Carbamazepine is given for anti-epilepsy or for when you've got some psychological disturbance. And diclofenac, for instance, this one at the bottom here, is used for sore muscles if you've got muscle strain. If you've done too much exercise and your muscles are sore. People buy that cream called Voltaren and we smear it all over our muscles. And next time we go and bath, that gets washed out into the environment. And then these are the sort of compounds that sit in your non-stick pans and in your firefighting foams. I'm sure none of you have ever done it, but I know that there are some students that like taking the fire hydrant and spraying people with foam. I'm sure you're never going to do that. But certainly at our campus there are some students that have done that in the riots where they have sprayed other students with the foam. And there are students and young people that go to these foam parties. I don't know if you've ever heard of a foam party. They're using these compounds to make that foam. And when they're finished with that, that compound goes into the environment. So we're actually misusing carbon. And what happens? This looks like a nice picture of Cape Town, doesn't it? Yes. But do you notice this plume here? All the sewage from the city gets put into the ocean. So we have got wastewater treatment plants in Cape Town that are around the Cape Flats area. We've got quite a few wastewater treatment plants, but most of the city, from Salt River all the way to Green Point, all the way around to Houtbag, all that sewage is being pumped into the ocean without treatment. So next time you go and swim in Camps Bay or at Sea Point, just know that you are swimming in your sewage. So we've gone and done the microbiology. We've gone along the beaches and we have tested for microbes from sewage, because you know when you use the loo, you are actually excreting E. coli. Have you heard of that? E. coli is the enteric organism that actually helps to digest your food, or that lives on your food when it gets to your diphtheria. Yeah. So E. coli is an absolute indicator of fecal pollution. If we find E. coli somewhere, it means that there is poo. And we're finding E. coli all along our beaches. Macassar, Monwabisi, all along New Zealand. There's E. coli all along our beaches. Camps Bay Beach as well. Camps Bay Beach as well. Hout Bay Beach, Clifton, full of microbes. Milverton, really bad. Lagoon Beach is really bad. Our whole coastline is polluted, yes? Very polluted. Strand, very polluted.
Sorry, Prof. Nurse, settle down. So, is it the E. coli is specifically human E. coli, or would you see the difference maybe from animal?
Well, it's possible that some of it comes from animals, and it could be coming from stormwater rain. But when you think about the amount of humans that are in Cape Town, that are defecating and their stuff is going into the sewers, you're definitely talking about E. coli from humans. And if E. coli is present there, all the pathogens will be present there. So every disease that everybody is sick with will also be there. Remember, the E. coli is just to give us an indication that there is fecal pollution in the environment. Now, if you think about it, we have been designed to fight against microbes, isn't it? Our bodies are quite tough. We have a bacterial fighting system in our body. What is it called? You've got your white blood cells, isn't it? And they engulf the microbes. So we have developed with these microbes over many, many centuries, and we know our bodies are quite robust. We don't succumb to microbes very easily. Else an old lady like me wouldn't be alive anymore, hey? So I've had plenty of infections, but my body has fought them off. And even you, yourselves, have fought off plenty infections, isn't it? So our bodies are able to cope with that. But when you look at these organisms, these are marine organisms that are in the sea all the time. And these organisms have not got any capacity to deal with all those chemicals that we throw into the ocean. Now I just want to show you, we went and got mussels and limpets and seaweeds from the rocks around our beaches to look at whether we could find these chemicals inside of them. And I don't know how familiar you are with rafts, but here you can see that we found the herbicides inside these organisms. We found those perfluorinated compounds inside the organisms, and we found the medicines inside the organisms. So here you can see that Voltaren that you rub on your legs is ending up in the mussels and in the limpets and in the starfish and in the sea urchins and in the seaweed. So not only is there a whole micro pollution around the beaches, all the organisms that live in the water are taking up these compounds. Because we have made those compounds so tough, we've made those compounds so resistant to breaking down.
Now, what is the salt in the ocean now?
What is the salt in the ocean for? Well, look, the thing is, remember sodium and chloride, which is the main cause of the saltiness in the sea. Not the only cause, but the main cause. Both of those are very conservative elements. They don't like making bonds with other stuff. And they're very soluble. So anywhere rain falls, rain will dissolve any kind of soil and rock that contains sodium or chlorine in it. And that slowly over the many, many years has washed into the ocean. And you know, our rainfall cycle is such that the ocean evaporates and clean water gets pulled out of the sea. And that it's transported over the land, and when it falls, it's clean water. And then it dissolves some more salt, and that salt gets carried down to the sea. And then the clean water gets evaporated again, and the salt remains in the sea. And that's why the sea is salty. So that same cycle is actually what is also pushing these chemicals into the ocean. Because the ocean is the final destination for almost all the elements from land-based activities. And then we went along and we got some fish. We got snook. Who likes snook? How much snook do you eat at a sitting? Very much. So do I. I'm quite happy to eat a big piece of snook, eh? Yeah. And the other fish too. Have you eaten some of those other fish? Now that fish we got from Bay Harbour, from the False Bay side. And look what we found inside that fish. We found all the pesticides and herbicides in there. And we found all the pharmaceuticals in there. And there's your coffee. Your coffee. The coffee that you drink every day is turning up in the fish. And your antibiotics are turning up in the fish. And most worrying, that compound called diclofenac, the one one that's in Voltaren. That one is extremely high in the fish. Look at what it's like. 1,800 nanograms per gram. And you're eating 200 or 300 grams of snook. That goes back into your body. So instead of it now being rubbed on your legs, it's going into your body. What do you think about that? So these little fish have got flavor. And that one is saying there's a killer virus around, and the other one is saying, don't worry, there's enough prescription drugs in the water for us not to worry. But you know, the trouble is that when those antibiotics, I showed you that the antibiotic is going into the water. And what does that cause? That causes antibiotic resistance. Have you heard of that? You've all heard about TB resistance. Yes. What is happening is that we're actually getting to a situation where microbes are becoming so resistant to antibiotics because of this low level of antibiotics in the environment. Their genes are altering. And they're forming new microbes that are not susceptible or can't be stopped by antibiotics anymore. Because they become tough enough not to die when you give them an antibiotic. Now you know what that means? It means that soon there will not be any drugs that are available to use for infections. And you know, already now in the hospitals, we have a tremendous problem with infection control. Because a lot of people who go into hospitals end up getting a microbe in their wound, in the operation wound, that causes sepsis. And there aren't any drugs to stop that septic process from continuing. And many, many people are dying in hospital these days because they picked up a resistant microbe in the hospital. That's one of the reasons why people are being chased out of hospitals very quickly after they've had a surgical intervention. Because they think that you'll be safer at home than to stay in the hospital. You've heard of that? So, I think just before I end, I just want to say that everything we use on land, everything that we use on land has got some element in it. And those elements, and particularly the carbon elements, are ending up in the ocean. Just like I spoke to you about us testing the mussels for toxic metals and radioactive metals, we're also testing the mussels for these carbon compounds. And all of these things are ending up in the ocean. We're also seeing that all our plastic is ending up in the ocean. And you might not know it, but when you're driving in a car or in a truck or in a bus, those tires are wearing every day. And the wear from the tires is actually the black soot that you pick up on surfaces. Have you seen how quickly our house gets dirty? It's the black soot from your tires and from diesel emissions. And that is also ending up in the ocean. And it's very hard to pick those little particles out of the ocean. It's also very hard to pick up the microplastics. We can maybe pick up the bags that we find in the sea or in the ocean, in the beaches, but we can't pick up those small particles. And those things are going into the flesh of the fish. But recently they've been showing that when you're using a plastic bottle, if you drink water from a plastic bottle, you have far more microplastic in your body than somebody who's using water from a tap. So, if you take home any message today, please take home the message of please stop using plastics. Please. Especially don't use straws. Give the straw back. When you get a straw, give it back to the person who sold it to you. If you get a coffee cup, make sure that you just take the cardboard cup, give them the plastic portion back. Say to them, no thanks, I don't want that. If somebody gives you plastic knife and fork, give it back to them. Say to them, I don't want that. Because until we start saying that we don't want those things, we're not going to beat this problem. Those polystyrene containers that you get your hamburgers in, take your hamburger out, put it in a serviette, and give the polystyrene back to them. If they give you something in plastic, complain. Tell them that you want your food in biodegradable cardboard. I'm sure. Just what?
Why did you say so?
Sorry?
Why did you say so?
Because that plastic doesn't degrade. It will last for 500 or more years. And it goes into the ocean. And that is why our suburbs are in such a mess. Everywhere you look, you see plastic. Because the plastic doesn't degrade. And then I want to ask you also, please, use as little chemicals as possible in your life. When you're cleaning your toilets at home, you ladies will end up cleaning houses, just like me. When you clean your house, please guys, don't use chemicals to clean your house. You can use bleach. You can use bleach. Bleach is relatively safe. But please don't use things like Dettol. If you can, don't buy things like Sunlight Liquid. Go and try and find a biodegradable alternative. Yeah, the Sunlight soap is okay. But don't use the life buoy, please. Life buoy is full of phenolic compounds. But that's just the problem. I said to you just now that your body is able to cope with bacteria. You don't need to kill 99.9% of the Sorry, we can't hear you.
Ma'am, you said that the bacteria now is getting clever. Now
Yes.
you cannot use antibiotics for the bacteria, but now you say that you cannot use 99.9% soap. Now, what's going on?
Look, most bacteria are not harmful. Most bacteria, you are full of bacteria. Our skin, I think, if you had to take all the bacteria that are on you and in you, you would lose about 2 pounds, 2 kilos of weight. A lot of those microbes do a lot of good. The microbes in your gut help you to digest your food. And a lot of your ordinary bacteria, the ordinary bacteria are called commensals. And commensal bacteria are not harmful. But the thing is, when you use a 99.9% soap, you're killing all the non-harmful bacteria. And you're opening the playing field for the resistant microbes. Do you understand? Because your ordinary bacteria actually are there to protect you. They fight a good battle for you. But when you use one of those antiseptic soaps, you're actually killing them all off and you're allowing the pathogens to grow. And those pathogens are the ones that are altering the behavior. So please, when you clean your house, go and try and find biodegradable products. Products that are made to break down. You can find, even in Checkers, you can find biodegradable products. I know it's a bit more expensive, but when enough of us start buying those products, the prices will come down. Okay. So, I just wanted to put this little picture of that little fish down. The fish can't go and buy himself fresh water. He has to stay in that horrible water. And we see this in the fish. And it's easy for me to go and buy fish and cut them up and go and test them. But it's not allowed for me to take one of you and cut you up and go and test you, hey? So it's very difficult for me to see how many of these compounds are in your flesh. There are a couple of people that have voluntarily gone and given samples to analysts to go and test their blood, etc. And recently they did studies of mother's milk. And they found a lot of these compounds in the mother's milk. They also find it in your urine. If they're finding it in your urine, it means it's been inside your body, eh? Yes. Yeah. If you're feeding your baby with your breast milk, and you're full of these compounds, you're giving your tiny baby a dose of all these medicines. Because it's in your breast milk. So, if you're surrounding yourself in your house with all these chemicals, because you smear them on all your surfaces to get rid of 99% of the germs, then when your child is falling on that floor, instead of just getting dust on his hands or her hands, they're picking up those chemicals. And what do children do with their hands? Grab into their mouths, eh? So please try and use as little chemicals as possible. Also, please don't use headache pills and things like that, over-the-counter medicines, unless you really have to. I know we need medicines, but don't use them unless you really have to, because they end up in the sea. But they just more germs. The dog can stay in the house. The dog is not dirty, as you say. He's got the normal germs you've got. He makes a bit of a mess. Not really. Dog diseases are purely human diseases. They might slobber a bit. I mean, they make a mess. I don't like having a dog in the house because it makes hairs a mess. But it's not going to make you sick. Unless the dog itself has got disease on it. Okay, I just want to show you one last slide or two. This is a typical wastewater treatment plant. This is where the sewage usually goes to, apart from when we throw the sewage into the sea. And this has got a couple of stages. So it screens out the coarse stuff, and it takes the sand and the grit out, and then it actually has a process where microbes eat the nutrients up. So they use bacteria to treat our sewage, and then the solid sludges are taken out and the water is released. Now there's a couple of things that are happening because we're using so many chemicals. Is when you throw all those chemicals down the drain, especially when you throw things like dental down the drain, you're actually killing the microbes in the sewage plant. and you're making the sewage plant ineffective. Can you see that? Because metal and things like that are designed to kill microbes. Those 99.9% products are made to kill the microbes that are in the wastewater treatment plant. So it's not just that we're impacting the environment, we're also impacting the way that our wastewater treatment plants work. And there are a lot of communities that are very upset because the effluent from the wastewater treatment plant is polluting their environment. But if you think about it, if we're throwing those chemicals in the drain, we're actually making those plants not work properly because they're designed to use microbes to chew up the nutrients. So the microbes eat the food. You know about that. That's how a wastewater treatment plant works. The microbes eat the food. So they take all the nutrients out of the water. They take all the carbon out of the water. So if we're throwing chemicals in here, we stop this process working. And part of what we've been doing is we've been trying to break down those organic carbon compounds at the end of the process here. So we actually are, sorry, I'm standing in front of you. We're using a process called cavitation, and I'm just going to go through this very quickly because I think I've spent a lot of time talking to you today. But have you ever turned on a tap and heard the pipe go boom, 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 boom? Yeah. That is called a water hammer. Water hammer. And the reason why that happens is because water is being forced through a narrow opening. And then when it comes out the other side, it forms bubbles. And those bubbles collapse. And those bubbles, when they collapse, they actually break water up. And when you break water up, it forms free radicals. You've all heard of free radicals, eh? Oxidizing agents. And if you look there, you can see what the portion of the water is doing. Here's the broken up water molecule. And that free radical, the OH, is one of the strongest oxidants. And it actually breaks those molecules, those carbon compounds, apart. So there is a way to break those compounds up. But it requires a very strong oxidant. And when we break water apart, we get all these different species. So when we actually use the cavitation system, we create all these different free radicals. Do you see them? Everything with a dot behind it is a free radical. And there's ozone amongst that, and there's peroxide amongst that. Do you see it? So those free radicals are the only things that are strong enough to break those molecules. And we're developing a system using those. And we've already got it at a fairly large scale. We can already do about 1,000 liters with this system. And I just want to show you that it actually makes these free radicals when you run it. Can you see there's the free radicals increasing over time in the system? And my student has just given me these results, so these are one of the first people to see it. This shows you that if we use the right equipment, we can actually break those compounds down in 10 minutes. So I think that's very exciting science. And I'm trying to persuade the people that are building our sewage plants to put this treatment system at the end of the sewage plant so that they can actually break the chemicals before they go into the sea. But you can see that if we want to keep our environment looking good, and if we want to keep all the living creatures that are out there healthy, as well as ourselves, we need to stop loving chemicals as much as we do. Okay. So with that, I hope I've told you something that you didn't know.